Hey, and welcome back to the second half of the CPMC podcast, where we've got the Beaver Auction Best Ball League, where we're going to be counting down from 6 to 1 here. We already saw the first six teams ranked, and now we're going to check out the second six, the better six, if you will. So let's check out that number six here, Chris. At number six, we're going to be going with Not Yo Kamish. Not Yo Kamish, who came in last, it looks like, last year. He's sitting at draft position number one. And he's looking at Deshaun Watson, Josh Allen. Boy, a lot of love for Drew Lock this offseason, Chris. Everyone, he's the
No,
veteran that they're going to be bringing in to compete with some of
no.
these young guys. I know you never buy into that stuff, but maybe. I mean, could he beat out Kyle Trask for a job? He might.
And I guess you could do worse than taking a shot on Drew Lock in his arm, right? I guess you could do worse. That's what I'm going with. You could do worse.
That's a fine way to put it here. We've also got Justin Herbert. So, man, three great quarterbacks. Cordero Patterson always seems to be in the mix somewhere. Nothing else really in terms of running backs. Wide receivers here, Donovan Peoples-Jones, Traylon Burks. Not a whole lot left in terms of tight ends either. Draft picks, he's got 101 and 105 as well. I think I really just ranked it here, Chris, because of his quarterback play and the picks that he's got, that it's going to turn into something decent. He's going to end up with a good enough team where he's sitting here at number six. But I could see this team finishing in last too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a very clear tier here for me between teams. Basically, I think eight or nine, all the way up to what we've seen here at six. Right? You love the quarterback situation here. He's going to add Bijan Robinson. I mean, this is a guy who is. I mean, he could just lock in that pick right now, call it into the commish. You don't need to debate. You need Bijan Robinson. I mean, unless somebody's going to offer you some insane package for the 101, that Bijan Robinson fits into this team like a glove. I mean, he has no other running backs really on his roster besides like Cordero Patterson. So, I mean, this team desperately needs the running back help. Um, you know, it's just a no-brainer pick for him at 101. And that one at 105, I mean, he can. That is a pick I would look to trade, right? If Anthony Robinson is there, and you can get a decent haul for him, position players, wide receivers, and running backs. If you could get a wide receiver and a running back for that 105, I think it's a slam dunk for this team. You don't need to take a quarterback. If you have to take the wide receiver too, whoever that may be, Quentin Johnston maybe, then I'd be okay with that. But I'd rather trade it off and get a couple players here for this team. My quarterbacks are so good. I feel like I have to do something to try and make a run at this thing. And if I'm not going to do that with my picks, the other move I guess would be trading one of the other quarterbacks, right? You got three. So maybe you trade one of those other quarterbacks, get a decent haul back, and go that route. I mean, I think he has some options here to play with.
Chris, I'm going to make some changes here to the rankings. I think when I was going through this and analyzing it in my head, I was like making the moves in my head for him. And at that point, I think he gets him into the middle of the pack. Um, and those were the moves that I was thinking. I'm trading away a Josh Allen or a Justin Herbert for a haul. And I think that helps complete his team. I was thinking trading 101 for a haul as well. And I think for those reasons, I had it in my head as, hey, this is going to be a team that will eventually have a complete team. But here's a change that I'm going to make, Chris. Based on what we have right now, before he hopefully makes these moves, I had him at six. I'm going to drop him actually down to number 10, which is quite the drop. But again, unless he makes those moves, I don't really see how he can finish much higher than that. So bump everybody else from 10 to 7 up a spot. And we're going to go with Not Yo Kamish at number 10. So again, I think the moves are here where it can turn into something. And in my head, it turned into something beautiful, which is why I had him as a potential playoff team. But man, I can't in good faith without those moves have him any higher than a double-digit ranking. So I'm going to put him at 10, Chris.
I mean, listen, we this is the quality assurance check here, live on the podcast. We're adjusting the rankings on the fly, and that's fair. I mean, I think that's fair. I was a little surprised when you had him up here, but I think you could sort of squint and see it. if he made some moves, and the quarterbacks are fantastic. I mean, it's probably the best quarterback room we've seen so far. So, there's some talent here on this team. I think he's got a couple moves to make to get him up to there where you wanted him.
So that's great news for everybody else getting bumped up a spot. Let's check out number 5. This one better be better by me. We've got Naughty Beavers sitting here, Chris, at number 5. We've got Russ Wilson, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold. We'll see what ends up happening with him. Is Jarrett Stidham the guy in Las Vegas? Who knows? Sam Howell, could he be the guy in Washington? I mean, these are all things in the realm of possibilities. We've got James Conner, Rashad Penny, David Montgomery, J.K. Dobbins, Javante Williams, Isaiah Pacheco. We've got Juju sitting here as well. Cortland Sutton, Hunter Renfro, Gabe Davis, Nico Collins, Rashad Bateman, Elijah Moore, Kadarius Toney, Drake London, Josh Palmer. Didn't get exactly great news today with Keenan and Mike Williams coming back, but we saw him in the mix regardless last year. David Njoku, Jake Ferguson, Cade Otton. And then we've got this tight end out of Houston who seems to be everybody's darling this offseason here, Chris. Quatoriano. I'm not exactly holding out big hopes for him, but a lot of people do like him. We've got 109. We've got 210, which could be two guys that add to this roster. We've got depth. I don't think we have that top end talent, Chris, really anywhere, but we've got a whole bunch of good guys. And in best ball, that's good enough.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a decently put together best ball team. It really is. He definitely doesn't have the ceiling players here. But man, I mean, this is the deepest team we've seen so far. It might be the deepest team we see, because I think you're looking here like players 1 through 30, basically are quality players who could score on any given week, right? I mean, these guys could score for you pretty much top to bottom on any given week. The key for this team to win in best ball, right? I think he needs Jarrett Stidham to be the guy in Vegas. I think that's going to happen. Actually, that's kind. I don't know if that's a hot take or whatever, but I do think he's going to be the guy in Vegas, and I think he's a little bit of a slinger, but I think he's going to be pretty good. At least fantasy wise, be competent. So between Wilson, Geno, Stidham, and whatever else he gets out of that quarterback crew, I think he's got enough at that position. And then, I mean, he's just solid throughout everywhere. It's going to be, for this team to really sort of win the title in best ball, he's going to need these guys who may not be capable of spike weeks every week to kind of spread out their spike weeks. That's sort of the luck that comes along with best ball. Like 1 week you need Dobbins to blow up. 1 week you need Montgomery to blow up. 1 week Pacheco, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's kind of the key to this team. But man, I mean, he's deep enough for that potentially to happen.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there, Chris. And as I'm looking at this team, I'm trying to think of where the top guy would be drafted if we did a startup right now. And maybe like Javante Williams in the 5th would be the first guy from this roster taken. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. You're not taking any of these wide receivers better than that. Maybe a Drake London, but nothing that I've seen. These quarterbacks are going probably in that range as well. So he's got like 15 guys that would be drafted between the 4th and 8th round, which, listen, in best ball, that's a strategy that we've gone with often to really pack in that depth. And I think he's done that really well. Rashad White is a guy that we didn't even mention before, looks to be the guy in Tampa, though I think they do bring in somebody as well. I think it fits with this team, Chris. I think we can lock this team into the playoff just based off of the weaknesses of others. I don't think it may lack the upside to win it, but I think this team is going to be just a tough out every single week.
No, I agree. I think it seems a locked in playoff team. I would not want to face it in the playoffs if it was a head to head matchup, just because I think that team's going to have a very high floor. He probably doesn't have the ceiling, but man, his floor is way up there.
All right, Chris, let's go to B Marks as our number 4 team. B Marks right now. We've got Danny Dimes, Tony Pollard, Derrick Henry, Cooper Kupp, DJ Moore, Chris Olave, Cole Kmet at tight end. Can he finally break out or just stop talking about him? One or the other. Jerry Jeudy, Calvin Ridley, James Cook. Superflex looks to be Jordan Love, I would say, at this moment. We got Davis Mills, Kyle Trask, Bailey Zappi. could all be in the mix. Jameis Winston as well. Miles Sanders, AJ Dillon sitting on the bench, Jacoby Myers, DJ Chark, Khalil Shakir, Alec Pierce, both guys that I like. Dulcich, tight end for Denver down there as well. No first or second to speak of, few eighths. I like this team, Chris. It's deep, but this one does have the top end talent, which is why I've got him at 4. I don't think he's where 1 and 2 are, but I think if this team won the title, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, I agree. He does have a good quality roster. It's fairly deep. I do like his top end talent here. I love Tony Pollard, Derrick Henry. We know can spike. Cooper Cup when he comes back, God knows he can spike. Calvin Ridley, man, he's the X factor for me. Judy and Ridley to me, I think this team goes as they go, right? Judy, he's kind of the popular darling this offseason so far. The guy to take the next step with Sean Payton there to kind of fix what ails Russell Wilson. So, between him and then Ridley giving the Jags that sort of that potential elite wide receiver one to complement Christian Kirk. I think that's the X factor for this team. If those guys can have, probably need to be top 15 wide receiver seasons, which I think is reasonable. I think it's reasonable out of both those guys. If that happens, I could see this team playing for a title.
Yeah, and it's got a fair amount of depth too, Chris. I like Miles Sanders, always have. It's going to be a matter of where does he end up, but I think he's still going to give some value to some team. Jacoby Myers is a guy I've been liking late in draft this year. And then Shakir and Alec Pierce, two young guys, both saw, something of amount of targets this year as well. Bobby Trees sitting here on the bench, Tunyon. So we're in good shape, I think, here with this team, Chris. It's deep. It's a complete, quote unquote, starting lineup. It's a good mix of youth here with your DJ Moore, Olave, Judy, still young, James Cook. See what we get from him, and then we've got those wily vets, Henry, Cup, as well. So I like this team, Chris. I think it's in really good shape.
Yeah, I do too. And the big thing for me is he's got that upside, right, with Danny Dimes and, Tony Pollard and those other guys too. So, he has a chance to have those spike weeks that really can propel you in best ball.
All right, let's talk about our league winner from last year. And I've got him ranked in the 3 slot for this year, Chris. A shot 3-2-4. We've got Tannehill, we've got Dak Prescott, we've got Tua. So the quarterback position is more than covered. Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones as well. Cam Akers, we'll see what happens with him. Antonio Gibson, same story. Keenan Allen, Mike Evans. Love this team already, Chris. Just mentioning those two guys. Chris Samuel, always a nice best ball play. Michael Gallup, Deontay Johnson, T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, Devontae Smith. Chris, it's got the depth at wide receiver. He's got that in spades. He's got the ace in the hole, Travis Kelce and Kyle Pitts. Chris's team is very good. It is very deep. I really, really like this team a lot. He's got 201 in his pocket for this year's draft. No picks next year. I think what you see is what you get, for better or worse, and I'm definitely leaning for better here.
Yeah, to me, this is a title contender through and through. I like this team a lot as well. I think the one question mark you have is how does Aaron Jones perform if Aaron Rodgers goes? How does Alvin Kamara play? I mean, those are two big question marks just kind of hanging out there. And yes, his team has some depth at running back with Cam Akers, who is yet again another question mark, right? And Antonio Gibson, who's a question mark as well. So a lot of question marks in the running back core here, and I think that's what puts him, not as the favorite to repeat, basically. Because I love his wide receiver core. I love everything about it. It's deep. It's strong. A lot of elite players. There's good youth there as well. It's just the running back position has question marks up and down the lineup. Tight end is great, obviously, with Kelce and Hooper and Pitts. Boy, if Pitts breaks out finally, I mean, finally, will he ever break out? The fantasy Twitter is going to go absolutely bonkers if that happens. But and this team will reap the benefits. But Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair ranking just due to the running back question marks, right? I mean, that's really the only weakness of this team, I think. Now, I think if I'm this team, I've got to be looking to move that 201 if I could, maybe 201 plus one of my wide receivers for some running back help. I think that's where I would go here, especially if news breaks that Alvin Kamara is going to miss any games.
Yeah, that's going to be the key, I think, for this team here, Chris. And I think he just lacks, in the wide receiver spot. We've got a bunch of good guys, really, really good guys. But do we have that lights out guy? I think that's what this team is lacking a little bit of right now. Listen, I like T. Higgins, but he's a two. Brandon Ayuk, love him, but he's a two. Devontae Smith, he's a wide receiver too. Evans is the one, A, B, maybe out there with Godwin. Keenan Allen missed some time. We obviously love those two guys, so I'm not even going to talk any trash about them. We just don't have that alpha wide receiver here, I think, to put us over the top. Couple that with the running back, potential woes, and I've dropped this team to 3. Now, listen, is this team a title contender? 100%. I love this build. I love the team. He's going to have an ace at quarterback every single week between Dak and Tua and Tannehill just being there to fill in on bye week. So it's a thorough team, Chris, through and through. It's just those running back question marks for me. So I think that's what's going to hold him back and potentially stop him from winning the title again. So let's see the top 2 teams here, Chris. At number 2, we're going with TOB. TOB at number 2. Looking at a lineup of Lamar Jackson and Trey Lance. We're going to need something from Trey Lance this year. Then he's got DeAndre Swift, Kenneth Walker, Eli Mitchell, Brees Hall, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We're still mentioning him. Jalen Waddle, Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin, Hollywood Brown, Jarvis Landry, Alan Lazard, Zach Ertz as well, Irv Smith, Tyler Higbee, Juwan Johnson. He's got Gesicki. A lot of people on Gesicki this year. There's been a slow build up to everybody loving Gesicki. It's like people have been kind of almost ashamed to like him the past few years. I feel like that shame is wearing off, but the shame should stay with you because he stinks. Anyway, he's got 108 in this year's draft, which is going to be a productive guy. It's a good team here, Chris. I think it's as deep and it offers a little more top end talent than what we just saw in a couple of spots. So I got this team at number 2.
Yeah, and it's a very solid team. I think, Trey Lance is a super interesting guy, this offseason, right? I mean, eh, what can you expect out of Trey Lance? I mean, I think is like the biggest question of the offseason, to be honest. I mean, Brock Purdy was so good, led the 49ers so deep. Um, you know, but I mean, Trey Lance is obviously super talented. So I think it's a huge question mark here. His running backs are great here. DeAndre Swift, Kenneth Walker, Brees Hall hopefully comes back off the injury. I mean, there's nothing not to like about this running back core. Jalen Waddle, Amari Cooper, Godwin. I mean, it's a very strong wide receiver core. It's hard not to like anything about this team. It's a very deep, very strong team. My one big X factor here, I think this team goes as far as Trey Lance takes them. I think that's the biggest question mark for TOB here is Trey Lance and what happens with him.
Yeah, I wonder if you eliminate that uncertainty by trading 108 for a quarterback plus. Why not go get something like a Kirk Cousins if that's available plus, for 108. We're always going to be suggesting to go grab Kirk Cousins when you're a contender. Or you've just got to wait it out, see what happens with Trey Lance. If he's the guy, I think this team is wheels up. But at some point, if you find out that he's not the guy, and that word probably won't come down to like August or something like that. Now we've lost our QB2. We're in a little bit of a jam. People hold you hostage for a quarterback, knowing that you want to contend. So it's going to be a little bit of a decision time, I think, for TOB. If I'm him, I'm waiting to see what happens with Trey Lance. I'm not making any type of hasty play because I think at any point you could give up I don't know, an Alan Lazard for like an Aaron Rodgers or something, maybe even at some point. If we find out he's in a 1-year deal in New York and it's not going to go any further, you move an Amari Cooper maybe if need be. You just have some options. So I'm waiting to hear from Trey Lance.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think if I could use my pick to get Cousins, I think I'd do that. And just especially because you kind of want three quarterbacks anyway in best ball. So I think if I could make a move like that, I think it's kind of a no brainer for Tom. But otherwise, yeah, I don't see any problem with waiting.
All right, Chris, number one team here is our guy gets some in a couple leagues with this guy. Always seems to do a nice job, and he's got the number one team in my book on this team. And don't you know, there he is, Kirk Cousins sitting on this team as well. Kyler Murray, Latavius Murray, man, seems to be a huge benefactor of Sean Payton coming to Denver. Who else we got? Joe Mixon. Sheesh, what a tumultuous offseason for that guy. If he plays, he's great. Dalvin
It's, to
Cook,
say the least.
to
Jeez.
say the least. Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor down here as well, Chris. Devontae Adams, Steph Diggs at wide receiver, Terry McLaurin, CeeDee Lamb, George Kittle, Dawson Knox at the tight end position. No picks until the next presidential election, it seems. This team has top end talent. It's deep enough, not overly deep, but there's enough to cover some positions here, Chris. But the top end talent is overwhelming. I think he's got a 1-2 year window here to really make some things happen.
Yeah, I don't know what happened last year. I see him at draft position 7, which means he didn't have a great year, and I'm trying to figure it out because this team is pretty stacked. I mean, I don't know if he made some trades or what, but I mean, he had some guys with great years last year: McCaffrey, Barkley. I mean, Dalvin Cook and Joe Mixon were still very good. Latavius Murray gave you, plenty of production. I guess it lies with Kyler Murray being injured and kind of being a bust. But I mean, he still got some production on Andy Dalton, and Kirk
Yeah.
Cousins was just fine. So I'm trying to figure out how the heck this team finished. So he has draft position 7, but. I like this team a lot. I think this is the clear number one team. I think this team is a notch above Tob, who we had at 2. I love everything about this team. I think it's the clear title contender. I mean, I would just be looking to do basically anything I could do to add more depth to this team. Maybe I want to add a wide receiver. I feel very good about my running backs here. I mean, Matt, if we came out of a startup with this running back crew, I mean, we'd be doing backflips. So uh, I think I'd do anything I can to try and add a little bit of wide receiver help. Sometimes you can get, especially in best ball, you can get guys who can spike week for you, 3, 4, 5 times a season, and you can get them fairly cheap just because they're best ball guys. Nobody, values them as much as they would in a lineup sitting league. So I think that's what I'd be looking to do is kind of grab, a potential, like a guy, even a guy like Marquez Valdez Scantling, right? I mean, he comes super cheap, but he's going to score for you 3, 4 weeks out of the season where he catches those two deep touchdowns and puts a best ball score on there for you. So I'd be looking to do something like that. Just short my depth a little bit if I could.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense, Chris. And again, these running backs are going to take this team to the promised land here.
Yeah.
Um, can Kyler stay healthy? Can Kirk Cousins, still throw up those real spike weeks with Justin Jefferson catching the ball? So I love this team here, Chris. It's a very, very good team. It's very deep. And I think you're looking at this team, like I said, as a 1-2 year window, but he's still got some youthful guys in Claypool, Lamb, McLaurin's still pretty young. George Kittle by tight end standards is young enough. So let's go after it hard this year, probably next year, and then just kind of see where things end up. So, Chris, that's it for the show here. Let me give you the recount here 12-1. At number 12, we had My Nipples. At 11, we had Ama Jay-Z, her. 10, we switched out to get Not Yo Kamish there. 9 is Danzer V. Finn. 8 is Stuaka. 7 is Brian GL. 6 is Steve B. 5 is Naughty Beavers. 4 is B Marks. 3 A Shot. 2 TOB. And 1 is Get Some. So appreciate you guys joining us for this show. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you're looking to get a show done, please feel free to reach out to me on Sleeper, Maddie C259. Comment down below, whatever you need. We're here to take care of your personalized podcast needs. Remember to hit that subscribe button, and we will see you guys on the battlefield. Good luck this year, guys.